Hi, this is section 5.3, add or subtract polynomials, and this is about the procedures necessary for adding and subtracting polynomials. So for adding polynomials, the description, our key thing to remember is you must combine like terms. And that should sound very familiar. We're used to combining like terms. We do it often. So combine like terms. That's what we have to remember to do. So what sometimes makes it easier to remember what terms to combine is to kind of give them a shape. So if I look here, I've got 3y to the third. And that doesn't have any other y to the third, so I'm going to write it down right now. So 3y to the third. I'm going to use a square or rectangle shape to do my y squareds. I've got negative 2y squared and negative 4y squared. Negative 2 plus negative 4 is negative 6y squared. Then I have got a minus 7y and a plus 2y. Negative 7 plus 2 is minus 5, just plain y. And then I've got a minus 5. So that doesn't have a like term, I just keep it minus 5. So there's my simplified form. It's that easy to add polynomials. So let's do a little bit longer one, and we'll do the same thing. Just identify our like terms and add them together. So we want to first look for the one with the highest exponent, and that's right here, my 24x squared. So it's got to go first because we're going to put it in standard form, highest to lowest exponent. So I've got 24x squared. My next highest exponent would just be a plain x or a plain y, so we're going to do it in alphabetical order. X comes before y, so we'll do that first. So I've got 30x plus 7x, so 30 plus 7 is positive 37x. Then let's do our y's. I have got 14y plus 4y plus negative 10y. 14 plus 4 is 18, plus a negative 10 is 8. So I've got plus 8y. And then my last thing here, I've got negative 17, and then I've got a positive 2. So negative 17 plus 2 is negative 15. And all of my terms have some kind of shape around them, so I know I've used them all. I've combined them all. So let's look over at our subtracting polynomials. I'm just going to move my frame over a little bit here. So for subtracting polynomials, here's what you need to remember to do. First thing is distribute the negative. So we're first going to distribute the negative, and then we're going to combine like terms. So it's very, very similar. Really, what we're doing is changing our subtraction into addition. So for this first example, I've got a minus sign in the middle, so I'm going to make that addition. And then I have to give the negative sign to everything else. So everything that comes behind it becomes the opposite. So it becomes negative 3y. Negative 2x squared plus x and minus 7. So I distributed the negative by making everything else the opposite. Now I'm going to do exactly what I did for adding. So I got 8x to the third and a negative 3x to the third. 8 plus negative 3 is 5. And I've still got x to the third power. Going in order, I'm going to do my x squared next. So I've got a negative x squared, so that's negative 1x squared, and negative 2x squared, that becomes negative 3x squared. I've got a negative 5x and a plus 1x. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4x. And then I've got a plus 1 and a minus 7. 1 plus negative 7 is minus 6. So here, that is my simplified answer. Let's look down at the next one. So again, it's subtraction. I'm going to change my subtraction signs to addition. Then everything behind it will become the opposite. That's negative 4x and that's negative 3. Okay, here's a new set of parentheses with a minus sign in front, so I'm going to change this to addition. Then everything in these parentheses become the opposite, negative 7x squared and negative 14. Now we're just going to combine our like terms like we did before. Highest exponent is x squared. So I've got a 14x squared minus 7x squared, and that's just 7x squared. 14 minus 7 is 7. Now I've got a plus 7x and a minus 4x. 7 plus negative 4 is a positive 3x. And then I've got a minus 2 and a minus 3 and a minus 14. So negative 2 plus negative 3 plus negative 14 is negative 19. So that is my simplified form, and that's how we add and subtract polynomials. Let's flip it over. We've got one more frame to look at here. So now we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials. So let me try and make this one a little bit bigger real quick. So my multiplying polynomials is about using exponent rules and multiplication to perform tasks. So we're using exponent rules and multiplication to perform tasks. Okay, so our first one, basic multiplication. So we're first going to do some basic multiplication. So I'll move this over so we can see that a little bit better. So my basic multiplication, there's a couple of things to remember here. So with basic multiplication, what I want you to remember, can't get that just right, there we go. With basic multiplication, I want you to remember you multiply each value We're going to multiply each value in the first parentheses by each term in the second parentheses. So you might remember FOIL, but here we've got more than just two things in both sets. So everything in the first set has to go to everything in the second set. So I'm going to start with 3x squared and give that to the 2x. 3x squared times 2x is 6x to the third. 3x squared times 1 is plus 3x squared. Now I'm going to use a different color just to kind of show it a little bit better. Now I'm going to give that 8x to everything. So 8x times 2x, that's a plus 16x squared. So what some students like to do is line up their like terms. So I'm going to put that plus 16x squared right underneath my 3x squared because those are like terms, so I can remember to add them together. And then we've got 8x times 1, and that's plus 8x, and it doesn't have a like term yet, so I'm going to put it right back here, plus 8x. And then we've got this 1 that we need to distribute. So I've got 1 times 2x, and that's plus 2x. It matches up with the 8x, so I'll put those lined up. And then I've got 1 times 1, which is just 1, and that does not have a like term, so I'll put it at the end there. So now I've got all my like terms lined up. It's really easy to combine them. I've got 6x to the third with no like term. I've got 3x squared and 16x squared, so that's plus 19x squared. I've got 8x plus 2x, so that's plus 10x. And then I've got my plus 1 at the end. So I've got 6x to the third plus 19x squared plus 10x plus 1. So let's do that with the second one here. Let's take our 7x squared and give it to everything. 7x squared times a negative 4x to the third is negative 28x to the fifth. We add our exponents there. 7x squared times 2x squared is plus 14x to the fourth. 7x squared times a negative 17 is minus 119x to the second power. So now let's do our plus 8x to all those other terms. So 8x times negative 4x to the third, well, that's negative 32x to the fourth, so I'll put it with its like term. I'll line those up. Then I've got 8x times 2x squared, and that's plus 16x to the third. Now I don't have an x to the third term in here, so I've got to remember to put it right up there. So I'm going to give myself a little arrow. So that's plus 16x to the third. And then I've got 8x squared minus 8x times a negative 17, and that's negative 136x, and that doesn't have a like term, so I'll just put it at the end here. So now I've got all of my terms. I've given both things in the first set of parentheses to everything in the second set of parentheses. So now I just need to write my answer. I've got negative 28 x to the fifth. I've got x to the fourth, so I got 14x to the fourth, and negative 32x to the fourth. That's negative 18x to the fourth. My next is that plus 16x to the third without a like term. So plus 16x to the third. My next one is minus 119x squared. And my last one is minus 136x. So this is my final answer. So everything in the first went to everything in the second set of parentheses, and then I just combined my like terms. So I've got 7x minus 10, the quantity squared. So what we have to remember is that that really means 7x minus 10 times 7x minus 10. And then we just use FOIL, just like we've done before. So everything in the first, FOIL is just giving everything in the first to everything in the second set of parentheses. So 7x times 7x is 49x squared. 7x times negative 10 is minus 70x. Negative 10 times 7x, well, that's negative 70x too, isn't it? So I'll put those together because they match up. Negative 10 times a negative 10 is plus 100. So I just need to simplify by combining my like terms. I've got 49x squared minus 140x plus 100. And there's my final answer. And I think you can do this last one on this column on your own. So pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, welcome back. You should have this last problem done. I'm going to move my frame over so I can see this. My last column that we need to do here is special patterns. So what you need to remember to do is I'm going to give you a special pattern here. If you learn it now, it's going to help in chapter 10. So our special patterns, just the thing to remember here is there's a pattern to learn. So make sure you listen carefully because I'll talk about this pattern. So my sum of cubes, if I have a plus b, the quantity cubed, so to the third power, that's pattern is a to the third plus 3a squared times b plus 3ab squared plus b to the third. If I have a difference of cubes, that's the quantity a minus b to the third, that really reduces to a to the third minus 3a squared times b, so they're really close, it's just got a minus sign there, plus 3ab squared minus b to the third. Okay? So I want you to remember that you can FOIL 3 times. Okay, you could do that, it would work out, but it wastes time. Learn this pattern and it will go much, much quicker. So what you should notice here, what I want you to point out real quick, is I've got a to the third, a to the second, a to the first really, and then my a is gone. That's a to the 0th. A to the third, a to the second, a to the first really, and then a to the 0th here. And the opposite direction, I've got b to the 0th, b to the first, b squared, b to the third. Again, b to the 0th, b to the first, b squared, and b to the third. And then I've got just 3's in both of these spots. And really there's a pattern for the coefficients. There's really a 1, 3, 3, 1. 1, 3, 3, 1. Okay? And then the difference between here and here is I've got a plus and a minus and a plus and a minus. So I'm going to go through and do this using a pattern. So listen carefully. You might want to just listen and watch what I write before you actually write this down. So I'm going to write down all my coefficients. I've got a 1, a 3, and a 1. This is just a pattern. Now I take my a, or in this case, my a right here is my x. So I'm going to do x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, and then x to the 0th. Then I'm going to take my b, and in this case it's 4, and I'm going to work my way from 0 on up. So I'm going to say 4 to the 0th times 4 to the first times 4 to the second times 4 to the third. And I've got a plus sign separating each of my 4 terms. Now I want to simplify this. Okay, so I'm going to simplify this. I've got that 1, it goes away. 4 to the 0th is just 1. So really I've got x to the third as my first term. Plus, here I've got 3 times 4 to the first is 4. 3 times 4 is 12, x squared. Plus, here I've got 3 times 4 squared is 16. 3 times 16 is 48. And then I've got a plain x. And this last one, I've got 1 times x to the 0th, that just goes away, times 4 to the third. And 4 to the third is a positive 64. And that is what it looks like. If you FOILed it out 3 times, you would have a lot more work than just following that pattern. So let's do that with this next problem here. So again, I've got my 1, my 3, and my 1. And then I'm going to take my a, and that's 3x, and I'm going to start with the third power and work my way down. So I've got 3x to the third times 3x squared times 3x to the first times 3x to the 0th. So there's my a. Notice I worked my way down. Now I'm going to take my b, and that's negative 5, and I'm going to start at the 0 power and work my way up. So I've got negative 5 to the 0, and I'm going to separate with those with a plus. Negative 5 to the first, separate it with a plus. Negative 5 to the second, separate it with a plus, and then negative 5 to the third power. Now we're going to simplify. So I want to simplify now. So to simplify this, I've got 3 to the third, which is 9, times I've got that 1, and then negative 5 to the 0th is just 1. So I've got 9. And then I've still got x to the third power, so times x to the third. Plus, here I've got 3 times 3 squared is 9. I've still got my, I'm going to have an x squared there. And then I've got negative 5 to the first power, so times negative 5. Like I said, I still got that x squared though. So 3 times 9 times negative 5 is negative 135, and I've still got my x squared. This term, this third term here, I've got 3 times, I've got 3 to the first, which is 3, and I've got x to the first, so that's just a plain x, times negative 5 squared, which is 25. So I've got 3 times 3 times 25, which is a positive 225, and I've still got my x term there. And then the last term simplified, I've got 1 times, well, anything to the 0th just goes away. It's 1. So times negative 5 to the 3rd, which is negative 125. So 1 times negative 125 is minus 125. So this is my simplified answer. And then the last one here. So again, if I follow my pattern, you're going to put your 1, 3, 3, 1. I got 1, 3, 3, and 1. My a is right here, 2x. So I'm going to do 2x to the 3rd times 2x to the 2nd times 2x to the 1st times 2x to the 0th. My b is my negative 4. So I'm going to start that with the 0 power and work up. So I've got negative 4 to the 0th. I'm going to plus sign to separate. Negative 4 to the 1st and a plus sign to separate. Negative 4 to the 2nd and a plus sign to separate. And then I've got negative 4 to the 3rd power. So I've got all my terms written out here. Now I need to simplify them. So I've got 1 times 2 to the 3rd. So 2 to the 3rd, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. And then I've got x to the 3rd still. And I've got negative 4 to the 0th. That just goes away. So I've really got 8x to the 3rd power. The next one, I've got 3 times 2 squared is 4 times x squared, put that back here, times negative 4 to the 1st, which is just negative 4. So I have 3 times 4 times negative 4, which is negative 48. Then I've got my x squared with it. The third term here, I've got 3 times 2 to the 1st, which is 2, times x to the 1st, which is just x, times negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared is 16. So I've got 3 times 2 times 16, which is positive 96, and I've still got that x with it. And then my last term, I've got 1 times, well, 2x to the 0th, that just goes away. It's 1. So times negative 4 to the 3rd power, which is negative 64. So 1 times negative 64 is just minus 64. So this is a special pattern that if you follow it, it will definitely really help you. You can FOIL things out, as I said, but it goes much quicker if you just learn the pattern. So this is the end of the lesson. Make sure if you have any questions, you star it so we can talk about it in class tomorrow, and have a great night.